okay, here's a real far-reaching and general question about men and women, and then I want to ask a specific question about that crazy work schedule. But you said that you were emotionally unavailable with her. Do you think being emotionally unavailable is the default setting for guys?
Yeah.
Or you do?
Yeah.
I was going to say, or do you think that is a sign that the relationship is not working for them at the time?
No. I was emotionally unavailable to my current wife, who's, without question, not to sound Hallmark Channel, without question, my soulmate. I mean, she makes me want to be a better person. I love her. I miss not being with her every moment I'm not with her. But I was the same exact way with her in the beginning of our relationship as I was with my ex-wife. And it's just that she kind of saw through it and really helped, me find a new therapist and give me my space and allow me to kind of open up on my own, blah, blah, blah. I do think that, for the most part, American guys especially, they're not encouraged to open up about their feelings. And it's not only are they not encouraged to talk about their vulnerabilities, but it's almost a weakness to interpret and identify them. It's the idea of like, well, I might be depressed. Identifying that despondency is looked at as weakness. So you just kind of erase the whole thing.
You're just supposed to be stoic and just do it. And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Shut your mouth, go to work. And if you get a boo-boo, put a Band-Aid on it and go back. Is depression something you deal with? Yeah, definitely. Much more so than anxiety. I know my other people in my life deal with a lot of anxiety. I don't deal with any anxiety, but I'm massively depressed. Clinically so. I take antidepressants, whole deal. So, when did you start realizing you were depressed? Probably like middle school, where I definitely thought I'm probably different than the other kids because it's so easy to be like a cheerful. I'm like a happy person essentially, as far as my personality, as far as my behavior, but there was always such an underlying tone of kind of self-hatred and self-effacing thoughts and stuff like that, and never really feeling like I would amount to anything or be valuable in any way. And so once I got on the radio and people actually, when I put my mind to something and people actually gave me accolade for it, that's what made me so like hyper-focused. Like I was saying earlier, it seemed dumb, and it was dumb. I mean, I was talking about Paris Hilton and writing, fart jokes with, like I said, with Ralph. But I finally found something where people were like, oh, that was really awesome what you did. That was really funny. And I became possessed. I was a man possessed. All I could think about was like... I can totally relate to that. Yeah. Because, I mean, some of my stuff, like I did a lot of going on TV talking about entertainment stuff, and it's like at times I would look at it and be like, wait a minute. I was a professional journalist for years, right, and now I'm doing this ridiculous stuff. And yet it doesn't feel ridiculous because it's like you're doing something that is, first of all, it's hard to be good on TV. It's hard to be good on air. And the affirmation you're getting just reaches into that broken place. There's like nothing like it when people call up. They'll be like, man, you make my day at work so much better because of A, B, and C. I listen to the Corolla podcast every day, and Alison, you're so, but just 2 emails like that. I mean, it's like rocket fuel. Am I right? You just I just want to go and do more and make people happy. Yeah. And it's addictive. It was even more so, to me, I think, because you had already achieved a lot. I mean, you were probably a good student, and you were a hardworking student, and you probably had other things, extracurricular activities growing up, and things that you had been an achiever at. Like I was a perpetual. I never had anything where I was like, well, I'm going to go on and do A, B, and C. I was barely graduated high school. I mean, Adam and I have talked about this when he comes in on Loveline. I mean, I just never assumed I would be like the other kids. There was the successful kids, and then there was the 4 or 5 kids in the back of the class where everyone just knew. They're like, well, you'll go on and hopefully I'll get like a union construction gig. In my wildest dreams, maybe I'll be like a fireman or something. But never did I imagine I would do anything where I could put my mind to it, go to college, get a degree, get a good job, go on job interviews, anything like that. I thought I would hopefully skate by and then kind of pick up the pieces and go with the flow as I went. So when I was 23 and like completely backed my way into a career in radio on the radio show I grew up listening to.
How did you do it?
I thought I was going to be a musician for my life. When I was a little kid, I was like, I'm going to be Dave Grohl. I mean, I thought that. And
what did you play?
I played guitar and vocals and bass. I did play anything. I first started playing bass because here's advice to all you kids out there that want to be in a band, which I know is no one anymore because all kids just want to be DJs now. If you want to get in a band, learn how to play bass and play it well because nobody plays bass. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. There was a punk band in LA at the time that was relatively successful in that genre, and it was called GFP, Glutton for Punishment, and they needed a bass player, so I learned how to play bass. I had already started trying to play guitar, and I got in that band and we toured and did the whole thing, and that was the worst thing that could happen to me because I got a little taste of like somewhat of success, and my already existing drug and alcohol habit just skyrocketed. It just went out of control.
How old were you when you started doing drugs and alcohol?
I started drinking pretty consistently when I was about 15 or 16, like the summer before sophomore year. That's when I started really consistently getting drunk. And then I started daily drinking probably about 17 or 18. And then through that, harder drugs came. And then by the time I moved to the East Coast, which was 2000, so I was 20, I had already tried to get sober just off of drinking and smoking weed. Went to rehab, the whole thing, because I was drinking for breakfast. I was like a real drinker.
Okay, back up. Did you grow up in L.A.?
Yeah, Pasadena area.
Okay, and then you were using substances and drinking, and did other people see the problem that it was?
I mean, not really, because I surrounded myself with that group of kids. I mean, I never realized like how much we were all partying because I never exited that group. Everybody I knew drank daily and smoked weed. Took bong rips when they woke up. Everybody.
And were your parents around?
Yeah, but I mean, for me, they just kind of would check me out when I got home from school or football practice or whatever, and it was like, did I have any broken bones? No. Did I get a girl pregnant? No. Okay, go to your room and we'll see you when we see you. I mean, that was really it. It was like they made sure I had all the necessities in life to make something of myself, but they didn't check in with me. It's like and my sister was a totally different story. I think because she was a girl, they did take a more hands-on, invested approach. But for me, I think they signed up with all the way that all the rest of society felt like. Let's be real here. You're not going to be a brain surgeon. You're not going to go to college, and you're not going to do anything above and beyond what the other kids were.
Because you weren't a good student, they thought this?
I was a terrible student. Not only not a good student, I was like an F&D student. And
were you like class clown, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
so
I mean,
you're
really
popular.
Was. No, I wasn't like not popular, but I wasn't like one of the cool kids by any means. I was very invisible. I was like middle, but I was the best without question. I challenge anyone in the 626 from that grew up in the 90s to put me to the test. But back then, I was the best at being a class clown. I invested my time and focus into it. I fucked with every teacher. I loved pranking people. I loved kind of making myself a spectacle. And that was it. That was what really got me going. And then when I found drugs and alcohol, it was over. I mean, that's all. I told my wife the other day, and I meant it, and I hope she can understand what I meant by it, because it was not a knock on her. It's just that when my daughter was born, very recently, 6 weeks ago, I said, I think I finally found something that I love as much as drinking and using drugs. Because nothing ever really compared. I mean, I love my wife, but nothing was the same. Like, I used to get goosebumps knowing I could go score blow. I mean, I love it. And nothing ever really made me happy that way. It was like you could get that temporary escape from all of it. And it was so awesome. It was so awesome. I'd look forward to the weekend to be like, oh, I can't wait to watch college football and just get shit-faced. That was it.
So then what made you try to get clean the first time? You said that before you moved to the East Coast, you had already tried.
Yeah, I got in a bad car accident here in L.A., and my parents kind of that was a wake-up call to them to kind of step into my world. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I drink a lot, blah, blah, blah. And so they were like, hey, how about you go into rehab? And I did, and I went to like one of the better ones in the country, and I gave it a fair shot. And I think my left brain was in it intellectually, but now looking back on it, I was so not really doing it. I wasn't. I was kind of half-assing it.
Like faking it?
Not faking it, just I didn't really subscribe to the idea that, like, I'm going to not drink ever again.
Like, you weren't convinced that you had to.
Right, exactly. And I was 19 going on 20. I mean, I didn't know shit anyway, let alone having to do such a thorough self-investigation. I was incapable of doing that. But and that's not to say that 19, 20-year-olds can't do that, but I certainly couldn't. And I was just not prepared. And I read the books they told me to read. I went to the meetings they told me to go to, and I did the steps and all of that. Like I said, I kind of went through the motions. And at the time, I thought I was really going for it, but I wasn't. I was faking it.
How long were you clean after that?
Just under a year, like 10 months, and then I started drinking, and then moved to. I ain't got shit going on out here. So in 99, 2000, I moved out to the East Coast, and that's when things spiraled out of control.
To New York?
Yeah. And then I lived in Newark for a while. Then I ran out of money. I met a girl, moved down to Philly with her. Then I started crashing on people's couches. Then I went to moved to New Brunswick. Then I moved back to the city, and I started smoking speedballs, like mixing heroin and cocaine, and then just it was unbelievable how precipitously my life fell apart. I mean, it was insane.
Was it like every day that you were doing that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And I met this guy named Adam. He was the gayest guy ever. And he was an older guy. He was in his 50s. I was like 20, 21. And I befriended him, and he was wealthy, and he always had blow, and he always had heroin. And like he just wanted to party. And I told Drew this, and I meant it. It sounded kind of like locker room talk. But I said I never did anything with the guy, but I know for a fact if he's like at 4 a.m. when I was jonesing, if he's like, oh, I got a dime rock right here, it's all yours if you suck my dick, I totally would have, without question, hands down. But I never did. And he never even went that route. He just wanted someone to party with, and my life spiraled out of control. And I was in a apartment complex in Inglewood. I come back for. I believe it was Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was. To visit my family here in LA. And I was in an apartment complex in Inglewood, smoking rock and drinking beers. And it was like midday because I was watching like bad talk television. And there's no like big Hollywood story. I didn't get like rushed to the ER at that time or anything. I just was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I don't know why, I picked up the phone and called Los Encinas in Pasadena and asked if they had any beds available. And they said yes. And I said, okay, I'm going to check myself in tonight. I called my parents. And I said, this is where I'm at. Come pick me up. And then I checked in, and I never have used drugs or alcohol again.
Wow.
That was 2000, beginning of 2002.
Was that the first time
2002.
You had that thought? Or had you, like, you been...
That was the first time I had that serious... I had always identified, like, I've got a serious problem. I'm going to die from this. And I was like, well... I didn't really care. To be honest, I just, it's not like the life I was living offered me so much more to make me want. Yeah. I mean, I had no relationships. I had no real close connections with my parents. And I certainly didn't have any like prospect of doing anything good with my life. Nor did I ever assume I would. So I was like, well, I'm just party till I die. And I was a very reclusive user. I was not life of the party guy. I didn't get drunk and then I became this superhero. I just wanted to sit and watch cable TV and get fucked up. And so that was the first time I had that feeling of like, well, there is a better life out there if I try. And for no reason at all. I wish I had some internal motive that I could talk about, and it was just like, it was like a weird moment of clarity. And I just walked to a phone and called. And that was the last time that was 2002. Yeah.
It's amazing.